Can you all hear me? Welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, please make your way to your seats. Not that you haven't already, but thank you so much for being here on time. We've started a little bit late. There's so much exciting free speech activity going in Washington that as well, we have exciting weather. So I'm so glad that you're all here. I'm Matthew Sabelis. I'm the Director of Programming for Live and Virtual Events here at Editorial Projects and Education. We're the publisher of Education Week. Jobs career site, the Industry and Innovation Channel, a new channel that we just began this year in April of 2012, and Education Week Leadership Forums. We are delighted to be producing this live and our virtual event here in the back for the Southern Poverty Law Center for the second time. We're so thrilled to be bringing you here to Teaching Tolerance. Before we get on with this program, I need to go through a few housekeeping notes for those of you here and for those of you on the live stream. We are offering free Wi-Fi. We're offering free Wi-Fi here. If you're in the room, we want to encourage you to use it, especially for those of you who have your handhelds here. We have Pew Guest as our network, and then, of course, your username is just guest. Password, which we don't know is case sensitive or not, so give it a shot. I would try making it case sensitive. That's J68GH0RT. We also want to encourage you to use your Twitter while you're here, both online as well as here in the room, and the hashtag is TT Awards. You'll see that at the bottom left-hand side of all the screens here that you see in the room and on the PowerPoint slides that you see on the live stream. For those of you here, the bathrooms for the men are located behind the receptionist desk, and the ladies' room is in front of the receptionist desk. If you went to get your badge today, you received one of these. This is your reg form. This is your evaluation form, and we value your feedback. So please give us your sense about the event, what you liked, what you felt went well, what didn't go well for you. Please let us know. I take these very seriously. It's very important, so we run better and better live events for you. Lastly, please be sure to silence your cell phones. It's my pleasure to introduce to you the president of Southern Poverty Law Center, Richard Cohen. Richard came to the SPLC in 1986 and is as its legal director after spending 7 years here in Washington practicing law. He has been with the center since Teaching Tolerance was begun and has been closely involved in the growth and the development of the program. He also served as the executive producer for Teaching Tolerance films, 2 of which have won Academy Awards. Under his guidance, the SPLC won a series of landmark lawsuits against some of the nation's most violent white supremacist groups. He also successfully litigated a wide variety of important civil rights actions that include defending the rights of prisoners to be treated humanely, working for equal educational opportunities for all children, and bringing down the Confederate battle flag from the Alabama state capitol. Prior to becoming SPLC president in 2003, Richard served as its vice president for programs, which include the Intelligence Project and Teaching Tolerance. Everyone, please join me in welcoming Richard Cohen.
On behalf of the Board of Directors of the Southern Poverty Law Center, our 200 employees, and our 200,000 supporters from around the country, I want to welcome all of you here and appreciate so much that you came. You know, the center was founded in 1971 in Montgomery, Alabama, the birthplace of the modern civil rights movement. And as our name, Southern Poverty Law Center, implies, law, more particularly lawsuits, were the tool that we used to bring about social change. And, you know, over the years we have filed so many lawsuits over so many issues. Matthew mentioned a few of them, the rights of prisoners, the rights of children to be treated fairly in school, the rights of Medicaid recipients, the rights of persons in the coal country of Appalachia, really just so many different kinds of lawsuits. And about 20 years ago, we kind of came to a realization, and that was that we couldn't sue ourselves to victory. There weren't but so many lawsuits that one could file, and in some ways, lawsuits are a blunt instrument. They are something that's designed to remedy a problem that's already occurred rather than prevent a problem from occurring in the first place. And really, that's why we started our Teaching Tolerance program, to make the world tomorrow better than our world today, to make it so that we would have to file less lawsuits kind of in the future to bring about a just and equitable world. One of the things that gave us, a tremendous, one of the things that we were able to do, because we are supported by so many supporters from around the country, is that we have been able to distribute all of our materials free of charge. Today, we send at least two copies of Teaching Tolerance magazine to every school in the nation, and then hundreds of thousands more to our subscribers. We send our teaching kits to every school in the country that asks for them. The last film that we made, a film about kind of the epidemic of bullying in our country, we've sent out more than 100,000 free copies, kind of already. And the reason we're able to do this is because we've gotten the support of so many people around the country, and I hope the support of some of you here today. Now, I would say that Morris Dees, founder of the Southern Poverty Law Center, who's still coming to the office every day thinking of new stuff for us to do, I would say that Morris and I have big hearts. But also I'd say that when it comes to education, we have kind of empty heads. I mean, we're lawyers by trade, and we went to school, but, we don't pretend that we know all there is to need to know about education. We wouldn't hold a candle to our award winners today. And that's why we've been blessed with some great people in our Teaching Tolerance program to help lead the effort. Our director now, the finest director I would say we've ever had in the 20 years of our program, is a woman named Maureen Costello. Maureen, she's a provincial child, a very, very provincial child. She's from New York City, and before I called her and asked her to come to Montgomery, Alabama, she had never left the confines of that place. And she thought of herself as so worldly. She came and she lived in New York City. But we were able to tell her that there was another chapter in her life that she needed to lead. Maureen was a classroom teacher, an academic dean at a school in Staten Island for 18 years. After that, she ran the education program for Newsweek magazine, and also had a stint at Scholastic. And so Maureen is the person who is really guiding our efforts in the Teaching Tolerance program, the person who is spearheading the award ceremony today, spearheading all of the projects that we conduct under our Teaching Tolerance banner. So without more ado, let me introduce my colleague, Maureen Costello.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Richard. Teaching Tolerance works with educators to promote inclusive and equitable schools, and I am pleased to welcome you all to this very special gathering in our nation's capital. Today we are honoring 5 K-12 educators who have demonstrated excellence in teaching students from diverse racial, cultural, and linguistic backgrounds. The awardees were selected through a very rigorous review process, and they will each receive $1,000, this lovely plaque, and video examples of their teaching practice will be used to demonstrate what good teaching looks like and help inform the practice of other teachers around the country. In producing this event, Teaching Tolerance is proud to be partnering with Education Week Teacher as an interactive resource connected with America's K-12 education newspaper of record. Teacher strives to bring teacher leaders together around essential conversation and in education and instruction. So our interests have come together very nicely with this event. I'm really excited to not only honor our awardees, but also today to provide an opportunity to explore the kind of teaching that we really value at Teaching Tolerance, and which I think all of you value as well. We all know that quality teaching is the single most important school-based influence on student learning. And we also know that there are unacceptable gaps in academic achievement, school completion rates, and even civic engagement of students from varied racial, cultural, ethnic, and again, linguistic backgrounds. One of the most powerful ways to address these gaps is to help teachers develop the expertise that will better equip them to work effectively with students from diverse backgrounds, and these are the ones who need it the most. This expertise, we believe, is called culturally responsive teaching. Now, a key purpose of this award and of this event, then, is to enhance our profession's understanding of what culturally responsive teaching looks like. We want to explore how these practices benefit all students, not simply the racially diverse students, but in fact all students, because actually we are all diverse. And we want to find out what it might look like and what it may take to have more students learn from culturally responsive teachers. Now, culturally responsive pedagogy has won over researchers and it has won over academics. It's being very serious. It's being taken very seriously at universities. Our challenge now is to build a bridge between the academy and the classroom. And what we're trying to do is show what culturally responsive teaching looks like in practice. So what we tried to do is to identify 5 teachers from around the country whose work with diverse students was excellent. We sent crews out to film them in their classrooms, and we have about 8 hours of video for each one of these teachers. You'll see little snippets of that. And we want to spotlight their efforts and what culturally responsive excellence looks like in our professional development materials and teaching tolerance. We recognize, say, not only these 5 exceptional teachers, but we also recognize the importance of teaching each individual student, what we do call culturally responsive teaching. To some people, this may seem like an exotic approach to teaching, or one relevant only for students of color. It's easy to do it badly by making rather gross stereotypes, for instance, or making gross assumptions about how various groups learn, whether those groups be girls or Asian students or children living in poverty or African American boys. The simple truth is that culturally responsive teaching is teaching for global citizenship in the 21st century. It recognizes that each student embodies a singular set of experiences, relationships, and perspectives. And I have just lost my place. That can be tapped in the service of learning, and it adapts instruction accordingly. Culturally responsive teachers are experts at adaptive learning. Most of all, they honor difference and they set high expectations for all students. Our goal is that you'll leave this event today, and those of you who are watching it online will turn off your computer, and be convinced that every student benefits by being taught by a culturally responsive teacher. My guess is that you really already believe in some of the fundamentals. For example, how often in trying to communicate with people do you ask ourselves, I wonder where she's coming from? And how often do you search for meaning in somebody's words by saying, if only I could walk in their shoes? And that's really what culturally responsive teaching is about. We also are very interested in working collaboratively, because when we work collaboratively, as so many people in this knowledge economy have to do, don't we succeed best when each of us knows that our perspective will be respected and that the team has skills to support each other when the task becomes difficult? These everyday experiences that we talk about, whether in working collaboratively or trying to figure out the perspective that somebody else is coming from, have parallels in culturally responsive teaching. Knowing one's students well and using that knowledge in what and how one teaches each of them, respecting differences in students' race, in their culture, in their home environments, in their family structure, and building on these assets while avoiding stereotypes. Enhancing students' confidence that they can achieve at high levels and providing them with necessary support so that when they leave school, they think that it's a place that they belonged in. So if culturally responsive pedagogy is so sensible, why aren't more people doing it? And one of the reasons is that it does require substantial individual expertise. Culturally responsive teachers need to have this broad repertoire of skills that they can adapt to the ever-increasing diversity of their students. This morning I learned, for instance, that one of our teachers has 36, no, I almost gave you 20 more students, 36 students in his 5th grade class. And he really needs to have the skills to adapt instruction to each one of those students' individual needs. That is what teachers today are being called upon to do. In addition to the difficulty of understanding and responding to cultural differences, many educators feel uneasy, though, because they believe that race, for instance, is or should be irrelevant today, or that paying attention to one's race or one's ethnicity is somehow a form of discrimination. And unfortunately, these beliefs can be counterproductive. What's needed, of course, is more than just a sprinkling of culturally responsive teachers throughout a school environment here and there. You know, we recognize today 5 exceptional teachers, and our goal is that they will not continue to be exceptional, but that they will be typical of the teachers in schools in the future. Schools need cadres of them, supporting and encouraging each other. More than that, they also need culturally responsive leaders who know how to see how students' race, ethnicity, language powerfully influence their success in school. I congratulate this year's award winners. You are to be commended for your commitment to ensuring that more children are heard and supported regardless of their racial, ethnic, and cultural background. In fact, you show us the value that comes in celebrating and embracing our diversity, and we look forward to your continued success. So now it's on to the main event. Here we invited teachers from across the country to apply for the award. This was an extensive application process in which they were asked to tell us about their philosophies of teaching, how they adapted their curriculum, how they adapted their teaching strategies, what kind of leadership they showed in their schools. Essentially, we asked them to write a term paper. A panel of nationally prominent scholars, some of whom are in the room today, including Sonia Nieto and Bill Hawley, together with some of last year's honorees, reviewed the applications and selected the finalists. We then dispatched people to visit them in their schools to make sure that what they wrote on paper actually matched what they were doing in the classroom. And we also asked for evidence that their students actually achieved at high levels and were successful. It's not simply enough that you walk the walk. It's actually really important that you're demonstrating effective teaching. Finally, we went out with a film crew and we filmed the finalists, and we are honoring you here today. But we are honoring you only after having really shown that your teaching was evaluated and evidence of your success was considered. The first honoree is Lisa L Mashi. She is an ESOL teacher at Park Vista High School in Lake Worth, Florida. She's a graduate of the University of San Francisco in California. Lisa has more than 16 years of experience in teaching and administering multicultural programs in her district. She teaches English as a second language to 9th, 10th, and 12th graders by incorporating her students' personal, family, and school experiences into her lessons. She says, I learn about my students' values from their homes and communities by being involved in their education and in their lives, adding that she tries to go beyond stereotypes and generalizations to understand each student and to help him or her succeed. Central to AlMashi's success in meeting the needs of the vibrant, multicultural, and multilingual student community she works with is the opportunity she sees to develop lifelong learners. Teaching, she says, is the best profession because our products are human beings, and we can be part of the vast resources they bring with them. Lisa, come on up and get your award. Could you help me? Would you mind? I want to make sure everyone sees you. Congratulations. On behalf of the Southern Poverty Law Center and I Hope and teachers everywhere, I want to congratulate you for your success and wish you continued success.
Thank you so
very much.
Thank you.
Careful.
Mashi, and I was born in Michigan. My mom's from Venezuela, and my dad was from Hungary. I am the varsity diving coach here at Park Vista, and I am one of the boys' varsity soccer coaches here. It's a community high school. We are one of the largest high schools in the state of Florida. I love coaching. You really get to see a different side to the students. The diving is a team sport, but your individual role is vital in it. And when I talk about differentiating instruction, well, you have to do that with diving. It's always that reminder in my classroom that, yes, I have a class, but I have a class of individual students, and each of those students deserves my attention. My students come from other countries. They're called ELL, which is English Language Learner. I went to Venezuela when I was in first grade, did not know any Spanish. I was not noticed the entire first day by the teacher. I sat there, the bell rang, and off I went. So that was my first experience as a Spanish language learner. I have these students coming in, and they might not be used to a constitutional democracy. I have Cuban students, and so how can I relate that to begin with? Secondly, the curriculum begins at the Civil War. Well, what I do in my classes, instead of rules, I like doing social contracts. This is where you're going to live. This is the place that I want you to feel comfortable. So with that class, I said, all right, we're going to do a constitution. This is not about, oh, I'm going to vote and that this is a democracy, because it's not yet. We have to agree. It can't be lopsided. They got to food in the class. Some were adamant about, you can't eat, this is your education, you'll mess up the classroom. Others were like, we're hungry, we should be able to eat and feel comfortable. So we said, right, we're not going to keep it in here. We'll have to deal with it later. So just like some of the causes of the Civil War, what is our opportunity cost going to be with this? It's more important to create this nation. And that way I could have them relate a little bit to the idea of how the Constitution came to be with the Founding Fathers. I could have them relate it to some of the rules that, they could live by. And then I could also jump to the causes of the Civil War. But more importantly, it established that real-world connection. I did a lesson on the crucible. We started with Puritanism, and I developed this cooperative learning game which encompasses everybody's individual learning styles, where they're at with their literacy and their oral proficiency. And why? Each person in the group has to have a role. It really fosters teamwork, and then you can get into the questions of why. You get into the inference. You can synthesize, and everybody feels comfortable, and it's okay to make a mistake in this kind of an atmosphere. I went through high school thinking, I don't like school. I started failing all my classes. I had an English teacher 1 year. And one day after class, she said, where are you from? You look a little bit different than the other kids. And I said, well, my family's from Venezuela. And she said, tell me a little bit about it. This conversation took about 3 minutes. And she said, I tell you what, let me go ahead and have you look up Simón Bolívar. Just look him up, do a report for me. I started reading about this man who was this phenomenal leader, braved the Andes Mountains. And I was like, this is my ancestry. I wrote up the paper, and it was my first A. And that was the first moment of my life where I really thought, I can learn. And she changed my life. And I think that's one of the reasons I came full circle, to realize the power that one person has at any given moment in time to change another human being's life.
Okay, teacher awardees, remember how I mentioned that you're adaptive? I'm going to ask you to adapt a little bit now because I made a mistake just now. And I don't want us to learn from this, or I do want us to learn. What I'm going to do this time is I'm going to introduce the next awardee. I'm going to read a little something. Then we're going to watch the video. And then I will give them the award. Okay? So don't rush up. The next awardee is Anna E. Baldwin. Baldwin teaches English, composition, and speech and multicultural literature on the Flathead Indian Reservation in western Montana. She has 14 years of teaching experience in Montana and has received state, local, and national awards for her work, including the Distinguished Educator Award from the Montana Association of Teachers of English Language Arts. She received her doctorate from the University of Montana in Missoula. With 70% of her students being of tribal descent, Baldwin enlists tribal professionals and experts to share lessons in history, ecology, and literature with her students. She also incorporates materials that appeal to students' individual interests and strengths. Culture emanates from more than ethnicity, she says. There's teen culture, home culture, as well as traditional culture. Her hope is that through earnest discussion about things that matter, provocative assignments and texts, and supportive and honest relationships, students will leave the classroom with a better sense of themselves, their world, and their place in it.
Baldwin, and I have been teaching at Arley High School for 10 years. We're located on the southern end of the Flathead Reservation in western Montana, and the demographics of our school are 70% Native American, 30% non-Indian. A lot of the families are multi-generational here in the community, and part of where we come from is the place is important. Because we're on a reservation, I think it's really important that if I do cover any kind of Indian literature by Native American writers, sometimes those writers talk about things that are negative, what would be considered negative stereotypes about Indian people. And the last thing I want to do is have students go away from reading something like that with the idea that that's what we're perpetuating. So I invite students to investigate some of those stereotypes and try to talk about them and say, you know, this is a really popular writer, but he's sort of reinforcing some of the things that we're trying to break out of here. Stereotypes about Native Americans, both negative and positive.
So we went down to Florence to explain how, like, life on the reservation was, because they read a series of books by the author Sherman Alexie, and he stereotypes about the reservation, well, although his reservation is really poor.
And then try to balance that out with what are some of the positive stereotypes and how can we also sort of celebrate those. So one of the things I think is really important about teaching in any place, but you know, in my place, is that I incorporate as much local literature as possible and to try to make that literature come alive for students. So for example, in one class this year I taught a book called Perma Red by Deborah Magpie Erling, who is a Salish author, and it's really set right here. We could actually go to some of the places and visit.
I like the way she teaches it because she just gets you involved, and she has books that you can relate to.
In Montana, we have a mandate called Indian Education for All, and it basically stipulates that all students, Indian and non-Indian, will learn about Native American topics, specifically related to the tribes of Montana. It also requires that teachers and educators of all levels of schools learn about those topics as well, and that they work with local tribal individuals and organizations to incorporate that in an authentic and respectful way. When I teach Montana history, we look at Lewis and Clark through multiple perspectives. So the project for that was a painting that they had to select one of the events in the expedition through this area of Montana, western Montana, and paint it from someone's perspective. We have one painting which depicts the loss of the buffalo. Even though the literal perspective is through the sights of a gun, the way the student is going to articulate that is that it was a loss for the tribal people because they use the buffalo for everything. If it's local, it's going to be something that students can connect to, and so it enriches whatever we're doing in our classroom.
Anna, thank you for all of the work that you do, and on behalf of the Southern Poverty Law Center, I would like to present you with this award for your teaching and with the best wishes that you continue your great work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Here. Next, we have Darnell Fine. Fine, who has been teaching for 4 years, attended Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island, where he received a bachelor's degree in African Studies. He also holds a secondary education teaching certification in history and social studies. In his teaching, Fine draws on lessons and challenges from his own childhood to help motivate his 6th and 7th grade students in humanities, language arts, and social studies. My household was defined as chaotic, he says. Now, as a teacher, I am confronted with the underside of the hidden curriculum, where fellow educators still attribute low achievement to dysfunctional households. By contrast, he believes his students' diverse backgrounds give them a range of unique learning assets, and he seeks to tap into these by connecting assignments and discussions to their real-life experiences. Fine also builds relationships with parents, families, and other members of his students' community by hosting open forums, town hall meetings, and Socratic seminars. He contends that true inclusion is not merely a matter of valuing and celebrating cultural differences, saying, I must provide safe spaces for children to express their perspectives on life and what they are learning.
My name is Darnell Fine. I teach history and language arts in Atlanta, Georgia.
Atlanta Neighborhood Charter is a coalition of essential schools with a philosophy of student-centered constructivist learning. And what that basically means is we anchor the curriculum in the lived experiences of the students. It operates under a series of common principles, and one of those common principles is less is more, depth over coverage, where we really go in depth with the curriculum and we really go in depth with teaching students how to critically think. You know, my critical education started with my mother, and it wasn't until high school when I moved here that I met a teacher named Miss Aaliyah Aziz. Walk into a room, on the upper right-hand corner of her board, it says, Ms. Aziz be trippin', contraction untrippin'. Under that, it had Africa in big, bold letters, spelt with a K. And I was like, where am I? She was teaching me about sexism. She was teaching me about racism. She was teaching me about classism. And this is the first teacher ever that gave validity to my Black English vernacular. It's important for students to feel like the class is a democratic space where they can have dialogical encounters with each other. They have to be able to share who they are beyond the confines of the classroom. Kids before content. And what that means is like you have to look at individual kids before you look at these concepts and this content, because ultimately you're not trying to dump a whole bunch of facts into students and say, here, learn these. No, you have to get to know who they are first as individuals so we can really personalize the curriculum to fit their needs. And open forum is a way for students to express and bring whatever funds of knowledge that they have, whatever talents that they have, whatever's weighing on them heavily.
I had read one of my poems to my brother and my mom about love. It's not this.
Keep in mind that the canon in humanities is all socially constructed, where someone's picking these texts as being the texts that we study. Why can't students actually bring their own lived experiences in the classroom for us to study? Because that's just as valuable as Ernest Hemingway or William Faulkner or Toni Morrison.
Me and my brother Carson. It was the first time I got to see him again for a month, and we took pictures.
And this is what my teaching philosophy is anchored in. It's anchored in question, question, question. Getting students to think through a series of Socratic questions so they can birth new thoughts and new understandings of the world. Socratic seminar is a way for students to have discussions. So there's an inner circle and there's an outer circle. The inner circle participates in a critical reading of a text. The outer circle is kind of like a panopticon. It's like surveillance, and they're like observing, and they're checking behaviors. Then they're giving feedback to the discussion after the inner circle is finished. But then it's also reciprocal. This dialogical encounter I was talking about with open forum continues in a very academic way where the students are talking and I'm decentralized. They hate when I interrupt the Socratic seminar because it's their discussion, it's their space. Everyone has a chance to speak and it's supposed to be equitable. So it moves from this very individualistic type of activity to this very communal activity where it builds these interpersonal connections and interdependence, where it's about upholding and supporting the group. It teaches them to have these critical dialogues, not just in my class, but beyond the confines of my classroom. Every single student is a teacher to me, and they teach me something new every single day. They're critical readers, they're critical writers, they're critical researchers. They're amazing.
Join me on stage. Darnell, thank you so much for allowing your students to continue to teach you. And please have this award from us at the Southern Poverty Law Center with best wishes that you continue teaching for a long time.
Thank you.
Next we have Robert. Robert has been teaching children in San Francisco for 7 years. In that time, his innovative methods and commitment to helping students thrive has been formally recognized by the San Francisco Mayor's Office, the San Francisco School District, Edutopia, and other organizations. As a kindergarten teacher, Robert sees his primary role as creating a bond of trust to build relationships with his students and their families. He learns as much as he can about his students by making informal visits to their homes and developing partnership plans in which parents share their goals for their children. I offer a home visit to my families, and I consider it a privilege to be welcomed into my students' homes, knowing that for some, having someone who represents an institution with which they may not have had many positive experiences is a tremendous act of faith, he says. Sauter also tries to make school a welcoming, familiar place for students. In his classroom, each school day opens with a community circle in which students greet each other using their home languages. And he takes pains to ensure that his classroom reflects the community's diversity so students can see themselves and their families in the books, artwork, and the photography displayed.
My name is Robert Sauter, and I am a kindergarten teacher at Leonard Flynn Elementary School, and it's something that I love doing. I traveled to Taiwan and to Turkey where I taught English, and that's when I realized at 21 that, wow, I love this thing called teaching. Even before we set foot in the classroom, I try to make sure that my students understand that I see them. And each child comes in one at a time, and I shake her or his hand, give them a touch on the shoulder, and wish them a good morning.
Robert, Eric, good morning, Eric, how are you?
I've realized over the years that my role is as a facilitator in developing this concept of community, and not necessarily as a teacher of this, because my students come to me already with a well-developed sense of what a community is in the context of their families. And if we need even more of a reminder about what it is that people in a community do, we can refer to our community agreements. That's a really big part of the whole first portion of the kindergarten year, is helping students realize that we can together create agreements. Because you know what, you guys, you don't have to use the iMessage and the cleanup just here at school. Each student has an opportunity to be the student of the day. And it's one way that I help that student feel confident in her or his abilities to be a leader. It's a way that I develop personal relationships with individual students while at the same time getting a sense of what it is that I need to help them with academically, or finding out what is it that they're really excelling in at this point. I like to win. Let's get your counting fingers ready and figure out how many words that's going to be. I like to. How many? What's going to be the first? A big part of the community that we build here in our classroom is helping children understand that they are authors, that they are going to be doing this amazing thing called writing. And during Writers' Workshop is a time when I really get to draw on what it is that my students are bringing to the classroom, and I'm using what it is that I know about their interests, what I know about their home lives and their cultures, and bringing all of that to bear on that differentiated instruction that's going to support my students in making the leap to the next level as writers. We might get good ideas for our own stories. Kindergartners come to school with such awe, such wonder about the world, and one of the ways that I help my students continue on that path of wonderment is by making them feel really, really welcomed as they are, who they are.
Join me on stage, please. Thank you so much. And on behalf of the Southern Poverty Law Center, I would like to present you with this award, and thank you for this wonderful thing you call teaching. And finally, we have Lawrence Tan. Lawrence has been teaching in Los Angeles' Watts community for 11 years. His teaching philosophy is oriented around 5 important E's of learning: engage, educate, experience, empower, and enact. To bring these characteristics into his classroom, he uses a unique social justice curriculum that combines lessons on African American, Latino, and Asian American history with video games, social networking, and YouTube activities. He also values each student's identity and incorporates their diverse backgrounds into his teaching, frequently asking families to share their expertise with students through special mini-lessons. The academic success of Tan's students has helped his school go from a program improvement school to a California Distinguished School. But he has other goals for his students as well. I define success, he says, as creating changes in an individual and the community, personal growth and a willingness to give back to others, collective struggle, and a sense of selflessness. The work we do in the classroom has been transformative for the community and the students. In addition to teaching, Lawrence has helped establish the Watts Youth Collective with former students. It's an organization that promotes social change through the use of both new and old media in education. As Lawrence says, the development of youth into socially critical and responsible individuals is of the highest importance. It is evidenced in the actions, responses, and willingness to give back in my former and current students.
I am Lawrence Tan. I am a 5th grade teacher at 122nd Street School. The reason I chose 5th grade is kind of like that last push before they go into middle school, that last bastion. The culture of the school is a place where, you know, the kids are eager to learn and open to learning new things. It is a community, and it's something that we build together, and it's something that happens over time and not just okay, here's your teacher for 1 year. So we created the Watts Youth Collective. My former students come back. They talk to my current students, right? So just yesterday I had an 8th grader who came in and was talking to my 5th graders about how middle school is. And my high school students come back to plan an upcoming meeting on Sunday. Well, now you have like 5th graders looking at older kids doing community work, and they're like, oh, when can I join? The powerful thing about it is that these lessons have transferred over to the community, and they're working on counter media projects. They're working on knowledge of self, kind of learning about issues that are affecting the communities, like the black and brown tensions. Know the person and understand the person better, so that know the culture, that helps. And the thing that I did not expect is the fact that it's the cycle of giving back, right? They leave my room and they know there's a space, and they can leave and still come back. And not only come back, but give back. If you think about the 5 E's, the first E is engage. And so utilizing culturally responsive pedagogy like Geneva Gate, We Small, Funds of Knowledge, all these different theories, it really comes into play and really working with my students. And how can I make this lesson, how can I make this text as engaging as possible? Educate actually has the component of the foundational academic skills as well as that critical social justice tip. But what does it mean to read the world? What does it mean to I asked my students, I said, hey, do you ever get that feeling where you get frustrated because they don't understand what you're saying or where you're coming from? They're like, yeah. And I was like, well, see, that's why we have to learn to be able to get our voice and get in a way that people understand you. It's where you're using your education to create changes for yourselves, to use it to create changes in your communities. The third piece is the experience piece. So I bring in a lot of my experience. It's also where are they coming from, their experiences, right? And so we're learning about each other together. And then we're creating new experiences. The next step is empower. They're coming in with a lot already stacked against them, stereotype-wise. They're already told that they're not going to be making it to college, that they have an uphill battle. So we tackle some very high-level concepts that not only gives them confidence, like, hey, I just learned this word hegemony, and like Mr. Tan said, it's people in college do this, right? And so they like, I'm doing college work, but I'm a 5th grader. I can get through this stuff, and it's hard, and other people are struggling with it. The idea that they're doing it and they're knowing that they're doing it, it really empowers them to realize that they have potential to be successful academically all the way through university and beyond. The final piece is the enact piece. You now have a huge toolbox of skills. So what do you do about it? Developing that sense of civic responsibility. They might not be necessarily ready for it at the beginning of the year, but come spring, we definitely kind of say, okay, how can we change our lives, our communities, our school? Now we're going to inspire people. We're going to inform other people about things that we've learned. Our slogan is that real heroes have faces like us. Ordinary people doing extraordinary things, and so I can be part of this legacy.
Congratulations and thank you very much. And on behalf of the Southern Poverty Law Center, allow me to present you with this award. And I hope that you continue to empower your students so that they do continue to give back to the community all their lives. Right, congratulations. And you can stay up here. Will the other folks join us up here, all the awardees, so we can give them one final round of applause. Come on up with your awards. And a nice round of applause for all of our awardees. Thank you.